This is an overview of Futato chapter 25, and as you can tell, the chapter covers hollow verbs in the cal stem. Now, as Futato comments here in the first paragraph, a hollow verb is weak because the root is not made up of 3 consonants but only 2 with a long vowel in between. So that is the definition of a hollow verb. A hollow verb is any verb that has, you'll notice here, a shurek or a chirek yod or holam vav as its middle consonant. These verbs will do sort of odd things. Sometimes they will lose the middle consonant, but for the most part, I don't think that you'll find these much trouble. Just be aware again of the definition. Now, one thing that you will have to think about is here in section 1, infinitive construct. The characteristic long vowel is present in the infinitive construct. Now here's the tricky part, which is the dictionary form of the hollow verbs. For instance, cum, seem, and bow. That's the lemma. You're used to looking at this as the dictionary form, but for hollow verbs, that is actually the infinitive construct. So when you see something like this in a text, again, just sort of the lemma form, you will obviously be able to recognize it as a hollow verb, again, because of the middle consonant being a vowel, or one of these mater vowels. And if it's just by itself, then you might want to be thinking, hey, that's probably an infinitive construct. The imperfect, let's just fix our window here a little bit so we get more on. The imperfect, the characteristic long vowel is also present in the imperfect. So if you look at the forms here, again, we've got a shurek middle, we've got a yod middle, chirek yod, and then a holam vav. For some reason, the chirek does not show up in my digital edition, so that's a typo, but you get the idea anyway because of the yod. Now, if you look at these forms, in the imperfect, the patterns are consistent. We've got a prefix, right? Same set of prefixes before each lemma type. So the prefixes of the imperfect are not going to change. They're always the same. What changes is the second vowel situation. So you're going to have in these hollows typically your prefix with an A-class vowel, in this case it's a comets, and then it will retain the lemma vowel. So yakum, yasim, yabo. Okay, so that's really all the note there. Again, it's going to retain the long vowel in the imperfect. So that's actually pretty easy. Imperative, again, you just take off the imperfect prefix for your imperative form. So here's your second person. The imperatives are always the second person. Here are your second person imperfect forms. And if you just lop off the prefix, like we've talked about before with the imperative, for the most part, you've got consistent forms. Again, for your imperatives, if you haven't caught on by now, the best thing to do is to just note these endings, the chirek yod ending, and then again the vowel endings. That sort of helps orient you as far as the imperative. But you just lop off the prefix, and then those are your forms for the imperative. Now you'll notice right away here, again, with second masculine singular imperative, it's the lemma form. So now when you see this in a text, it could be either what? It could be either an infinitive construct, or it could be a second masculine singular imperative. And the only thing down here that changes is you are going to have a vowel change here with second feminine plural, but that's actually going to be a rare form. So a little bit to remember there. Cohortative, again, just adds the comets hey on the first person forms. So either first person singular, like the example here, akuma, or the first person plural, first common plural. So cohortatives, again, the comets hey at the end will be your sign. Jussives, just like in third hey, the jussive is a shortened form. So we might have normally the imperfect yakum. If you see something like this, yakom, Okay, the dot, the holum dot, is actually a shorter vowel than the shorek. Now, I haven't been having you do anything with vowels, and again, you're not going to have to necessarily, well, you really don't have to memorize these forms. You just have to retain this piece of information. Hebrew has A-class vowels, I-class vowels, and U-class vowels. Shurek is a U-class vowel, but holum is actually a U-class vowel too. Now, I didn't ask you to memorize anything about vowels or vowel classes, obviously, but just realize, again, for the sake of the discussion here, that the holum all by itself is going to be an abbreviated, a shortened form of the imperfect yakum in a hollow verb. And so that will be your signal, your sign that you have a jussive. Same thing down here with a middle yod hollow verb. Yasim is your imperfect, but the I-class herrick yod is going to shorten to a tsera. That'll be the short form. So again, jussives are shortened forms in many cases. Now the perfect is another issue, but again, I don't think you're going to find these difficult. There are a limited number of hollow verb lemmas, and you'll learn them in your vocabulary. So I think you'll be able to pick this out, what I'm going to show you here. The perfect, you don't have the long vowel in the perfect forms. So if you look here at the chart, we've got kum, sim, bo, bosh, mut. These are all hollow verbs, and you'll notice that we don't have the long vowel in any of the perfect forms, but all the perfect suffixes are the same. Okay, they're not going to change, and you already know them by heart. So right away you look at a form, and these you'll be able to tell just by virtue of the endings that you've got a perfect form. So if you know your vocabulary well, again, Bosch is a little bit of an exception out here in these two forms. But if you know your vocabulary well and you can spot the ending, then what you're left with, these two consonants, again, you should be thinking, again, that you have an abbreviated form of a hollow here. So kam, kama, kamta, kamt, kamti. Again, kum will reduce to A-class. Other ones will reduce to A-class as well. Most of them, in fact, are A-class. You have a few I-class here, and then some of your O vowels, your U-class. But again, the key to the perfect is the endings, the suffix endings, which you already know, and of course your vocabulary. So again, put some time into thinking about that. The participle, you see an issue here right away. The kal participle has the same form as third masculine singular of the perfect, so kam, sam, ba, so on and so forth. Again, so when you see these forms, you have to be thinking it's either third masculine singular perfect, or it's going to be a singular masculine singular participle. Kama, right here, again, you're going to have, because of the kamet's hey ending, you're going to have an issue. Let's go up here again with the perfect. So for your singular participle forms, or your two most basic perfect forms, third masculine singular, third feminine singular, they're going to be identical to the masculine singular and feminine singular participle forms. Beyond that, it's an easy tell. You've got the eem ending and the ot ending, which you would expect for your plural participles. So again, to this point, you've got your lemma forms that could be two things: infinitive construct or imperative, second masculine singular. And here you have the shortened forms without the long vowel that could be either third masculine singular perfect, third feminine singular perfect, or masculine feminine or feminine singular participles. The infinitive absolute will have the characteristic holum vav, and again, that, if you look here, again, in some of these, mot, bosh, bo, that's also going to be identical with the form that could be an infinitive construct, or again, your second masculine singular imperative. Now, som right here, the lemma is seem, so there's a change there. That would obviously be infinitive absolute. And then kum changes to comb, so that would be an obvious infinitive absolute. But if you remember the infinitive absolute in the kal, the pattern was for a strong verb like katal, it would be ka-tol. You'd have your comets and then your holum vav. That was your infinitive absolute pattern. here with weak verbs, we only are dealing with two consonants, with the vowel in the middle. But we still have to be aware that if we see a holem vav where we don't expect one, again, we have to know our vocabulary, then that's a dead giveaway for a cal infinitive absolute of that hollow verb. But again, some of them are going to have the hollow or the holem vav in their lemma forms. And so you just add that to the list. So just make a little list. Lemma form, the lemma form of a hollow verb in a text I'm reading or translating could be now at least two things: infinitive construct or second masculine singular imperative. And it might be the infinitive absolute, depending on the lemma form. If the lemma form also had holem vav, then that lemma form that you're encountering in the text you're translating could be three different things. When with respect to the infinitive, it's not going to matter that much in translation. Obviously, with an imperative, you need to translate that as an imperative, but the other ones are going to be sort of verbal in the way you would translate them anyway. And then here, again, knowing your vocabulary, you'll know this is an infinitive absolute. So that's the overview of the chapter. The rest is vocabulary. I know hollow verbs are a little weird, but again, there's a limited number of them, and once you get used to them, and the same ones sort of keep popping up all the time, I think I'm pretty confident in saying that I don't think you'll find hollow verbs that much of a big deal. Just make a little list of the ones that could be more than one thing, and again, keep that handy. But the other ones, again, the prefixes are going to be imperfect. The suffixes are going to help you with a perfect form, again, and you already know that stuff. So I don't think this will be a huge deal as far as a chapter for this unit. That's the end of the video for the overview.